Hey, welcome to the Gruber Morning Show, the EV portion. I'm Pete Gruber.
I'm Mark Schaffner. Good morning and welcome to everybody. Looks like we have a whole crowd welcoming us today.
We do, and this is the Lucid crowd that's cheering on Gruber Motor Company. Well, we think that may be what's going on, but this is the Gravity release here in Casa Grande, Arizona, the AMP1 factory. And this event occurred December 5th, actually. Number of employees, of course, were on hand. Pete Rawlinson was in the first Gravity that was driving down that assembly line, parked the car, got out, and did a very brief Elon-type dance. But it was to commemorate the first Gravity rolling off the assembly line.
You know, I have I've been trying to keep up on what's been going on with the Gravity a little bit. One of the reviewers that drove a final pre-production model of Gravity said Lucid's new take is compromise nothing. And the response from the author was they hit the mark. They compromise nothing.
Nice. Okay. Well, the stock market seems to be liking what's going on at this point. In fact, somebody quipped that aren't you glad you bought the dip? You know?
Well, and it's funny to see, and this is just an example of how emotional this all is.
Yeah.
Lucid was up 10% on the rumor that something that President Trump might or might not do, might or might not happen, that doesn't affect Lucid anyway. The latest rumor, of course, being that the EV tax credit might be kept in place rather than going away. And just on that rumor, which Lucid has already said, our cars don't qualify for the tax credit, but it made Lucid jump almost 10% anyway. And then on top of that, they had the Gravity roll off the line the same day, and that helped a lot too.
So we were looking to see if we recognized any of the employees in that picture. My son actually works for Lucid, and try as we may, we couldn't find him. So he was over Sunday, and he said, nah, they don't always tell us what's going on. And we weren't notified, so we would have been there. He works out of Arizona, of course.
Yeah.
You know. So, but anyway, my son Peter is not in that group, but if they do this again, I'm sure that he'll be there participating. So, yeah, that's the Lucid story. We've got an interesting article, but before we get there, it looks like a number of people are chiming in. We might as well greet them. YouTube, Blake Morris, he said, Lucid will take over Tesla in 5 years' time.
That would be interesting, Blake, if that happened. I don't know if I agree that it'll take over Tesla, but I think Lucid will be a much larger company in 5 years' time.
Tesla has so much momentum.
They do. And Tesla has so much momentum in areas that are not automobiles. Now, if you were to say Lucid could take over Tesla in 5 years' time in the automobile space, that's a little more reasonable and doable. Sammy Kamal on YouTube, Lucid Gravity, SUV of the year, 2024, 2025, 2026.
That would be wonderful. And then YouTube, Martin Woods is chiming in. He says, Lucid Gravity, SUV, EPA, 450 miles of range on a single charge. Compromise nothing.
Yeah, that was really good news that came out for the Gravity, that the EPA officially said that their estimated mileage was actually greater than what Lucid has been saying all along.
Yeah. And of course, that slogan, it looks like Jaguar is also doing something similar with Copy Nothing.
Yes.
But not quite as successful, I think, as Lucid at this point. A lot of, derision about their new direction.
Yes.
We'll get into that later. I think
that.
I've got a picture for you guys. All right. So here's an interesting headline that we found. Electric cars should last much longer than you think. Well, rather than having a shorter lifespan than internal combustion engines, EV batteries are lasting way longer than expected, surprising even the automakers themselves. You know, I agree with this completely because the original Tesla Roadster, the first real EV of any significance in this century at least, the expected lifespan of that battery was 10 years. Everyone freely admits that. You know, J.B. Strobel, for example, the CTO of Tesla, for over a decade. those batteries are still going strong 16 years later. We see it all the time in the service center. I just posted something on Facebook actually last week. We had a Roadster that was up to 185 miles range in standard mode. This was like the same levels as they were reaching when they were first released in 2008.
Right.
And Tesla, the design people are also amazed, saying, "Oh, how long will these batteries last?" Now, granted, if you brick your car, if you don't charge it, if you neglect it, then the battery begins to have issues. But for the most part, the Roadsters that are taken care of, properly charged, never bricked, they are continuing to operate, and they are exceeding all expectations at this point. So it's possible that these batteries will go to 20 years at this point.
It really is possible. The Model S is the only other major car with a longer range that has any type of comparable battery life, because the oldest Model S's, of course, starting in 2012, are now 12 years old. And we're finding that the same thing is occurring with Model S's, especially those that haven't been completely driven into the ground, and every charge was a high voltage charge up to 100%.
Supercharging,
Everywhere. If you're not supercharging all the time, if you're not running your battery down to 10% out all the time, these batteries are just lasting. And so we have a number of 2013 to 2015 vehicles in our own corporate fleet, and the batteries are just going. There's nothing wrong with these batteries. And so you're seeing that with the Model S. We've seen it with the Roadster. It's the whole idea that, while to compare it maybe to a phone battery, your phone battery lasts 3 years. Well, your phone battery is designed to go from 80, 90, or 100% all the way down to about 10 or 20% every day, and then get a full charge at a reasonably high voltage for a single phone battery every single day. These car batteries are designed so that unless you're taking long trips, you don't have to charge every day.
Right.
You might only have to charge once or twice a week. And if you're charging on a home charger, a 240 volt or even a 120 volt, you're putting in basically a trickle charge on those batteries over several hours.
Right.
Not the higher voltage charge that would be going into the batteries of a phone. The batteries are designed to last longer.
So the way this article reads is, EVs are practically worthless secondhand because the huge batteries will need an expensive replacement after a few years. At least that's what some articles or forum discussions in recent years may lead you to believe. However, while secondhand prices for EVs have been plummeting, there is evidence building that their batteries could last longer than the 8-year warranties that most come with. In fact, they could still be usable even after 20 years, potentially giving full electric cars a longer useful life than many fossil fuel equivalents.
Agree.
More comments coming in. YouTube exploration. Lucid will be bankrupt soon. Nothing but a memory in 5 years. My comment to that would be, will the PIF fund in Saudi Arabia really abandon this second life for their existence?
I don't think so. I honestly think that Lucid's going to fall somewhere in between taking over Tesla and bankruptcy. And it's probably going to be closer to the taking over Tesla side of that range. I can see Lucid potentially being a good quality, successful automobile manufacturer still in 5 years.
YouTube, Martin Woods. Lots of Lucid Gravity test drive reviews out today. Kyle from Out of Spec has a long review. Best SUV, they say, at the end of the video. Yeah, Kyle actually was given a Gravity, I think, for a few weeks or something, and he is a great reviewer. He definitely is EV knowledgeable and has test-driven a number of different EVs.
Yeah, he's known for being a good, balanced person when he does his reviews as well.
YouTube, Gary Dean Mercer Clark says, did chelation therapy to reduce lead and mercury levels in my body for a year. These metals are toxic and should be banned. We're going to talk a bit about lead that was widely used in gasoline and the impact it had for a generation that was exposed to it in the 60s. All right. Is there anything else we need to say about this EV battery?
Well, two quick points I want to make. First, for anyone who doesn't realize, the cost of EV batteries has dropped 97% in the last 30 years as they've gone from the research laboratory into early production, now wide scale commercial production.
Mhm.
And lithium prices are continuing to rapidly drop, as well as new technologies developing that are also putting downward pressure on lithium prices. For anyone who buys a battery electric vehicle today, I think they would end up paying less in 8 to 10 years for a new battery than a person who has an ICE vehicle today pays for a transmission,
Mhm.
which tends to go out about every 100,000 to 120,000 miles or so. Um, there are also claims that from Tesla that they're designing EV batteries that are meant to last a 500,000 miles at
Mhm.
least
Mhm.
in their newer cars. If you assume that a gas car would last 200 to 250,000 miles, you can safely say choosing an EV is almost like getting two cars for one.
Mhm.
So, um, one other fact, just real quick one. About a third of people who drive EVs, marketing surveys have shown,
Yeah.
they have rooftop solar. They do most of their charging of EVs using clean energy as well.
Okay.
I had no idea. That was kind of a fun statistic I found.
Well, it kind of brings us into this next article. And, this is an exciting time to be alive because technological advances are just coming at an exponential rate. This particular one, I've got an image here that we can pop up, Jesse. It looks like one of the auto manufacturers has finally done what we've been speculating. What about photoelectric paint? Well, Mercedes' new solar paint, they say, could boost EV range by 7,500 miles. This is per year, of course, which eliminates the need for daily charging. So Mercedes is developing this new type of solar paint that could transform electric vehicle power. It's a photovoltaic coating, just 5 micrometers thick. It covers 11 square meters, and it can generate enough electricity to power a car for up to 7,500 miles or 12,000 kilometers annually under ideal conditions.
It's fascinating and pretty exciting as a development to see. I wish I understood better how it worked exactly.
Yeah. And of course, we've all been speculating that the absurdity of plugging your car into something and then carrying 1,200 pounds of DC storage around with you is really probably going to be antique at some point in time in the world of technology.
Do you think they would potentially put two inverters into some of these cars like this? The article has said that if the car, if the battery is completely full, they can just drive off the solar or partly off the solar.
Mm-hmm.
But you could have an inverter putting electricity into the battery while there's another inverter pulling electricity out to power the car.
Sure, absolutely. Or have electronics that actually do a switching operation and or do both at the same time.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So they talk about the technology a bit. They say that the nanoparticle based paint allows 94% of solar energy to pass through and is easy to recycle. It's designed to be lightweight, 50 grams per square meter, and it can cover all exterior vehicle surfaces. The solar paint, which contains no rare earth elements or silicon, is also cheaper to produce than conventional solar modules. And the energy generated can be used to drive the vehicle, or like you say, or feed into a high voltage battery system, even when the car is off. So this could mean the end of plug-in for charging. The paint can be applied directly to the car's body with a color paint job sprayed over it to protect against scratches and other damage. It looks like collision shops are going to take on a whole new process with technology like this.
It is absolutely fascinating to see. And you think about it, this translates to somewhere around 20 miles a day with a charge.
Mm-hmm.
11 square meters is what they use. I read an article to back this up that said, yeah, 11 square meters. That's like the midsize Mercedes EQS SUV.
Hmm.
It's still fascinating because many people don't drive more than 30 miles a day to and from work, and they don't do any driving besides that. If this is going to give them 20 miles back
Hmm.
every single day, and that's 50 miles over the course of a week that they lose, which they gain right back when they have the car parked over the weekend.
Sure. Now, here's another interesting concept, which is already available from a technology standpoint. It can become part of your energy generating in your home. So when the car's sitting outside and you're not driving it, and it has its full charge on the battery, it now starts to drive or to direct some of that energy into your home.
That's fascinating.
Becomes part of your solar panel system.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that'd be fantastic.
The end of utilities eventually, and of course, with fusion on the horizon, we'll have plenty of energy as we go into this next century. There's a country in Europe, Luxembourg. It's very tiny. I've been there, driven through it. It's it's kind of like a neighborhood, basically. Hey, social media, can you tell us how big Luxembourg is? That might be interesting to share.
How big? Okay.
Yeah, but there's an article here. They will become, it says, the world's first country to make all public transportation free. This progressive move sets a new standard for public transportation.
998 square miles.
198 square miles?
998 square
Oh,
miles.
998. Okay. Well, it's bigger than I thought. I thought it was like a little neighborhood. I didn't take us long to drive through it, from what I recall.
998 square miles. That is twice the size of the official city of Phoenix,
Really? Okay.
and just under twice the size of the official city of Los Angeles.
Yeah. They have some small countries over there. Liechtenstein just comes to mind as well.
Mhm.
That's also a tiny little city. And then there's, I think, an island off the coast of the UK that is now a sovereign country. That all it is a one building type island. Anyway.
Didn't they have to hire somebody to be the king of that country or something like that?
Yeah, there was some, and then of course at one point the UK was going to annex it, and they fought it, and public opinion prevailed, and yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, more people coming in. TikTok, 2 Shades of Gray. Thanks for joining us, guys. Will learning to repair EVs be profitable in the future? Boy, we sure hope so. We've got Gruber Motor Company, and we're still looking for the black ink. And for us, there's so much investment, infrastructure improvements. What was it? We just bought an alignment rack, and that thing set us back quite a bit. So yeah, eventually, of course, it's going to be a complete industry, because all cars will be electric and they need to be repaired somewhere.
Yeah, I think there's a great future for repairing EVs.
Yeah. YouTube, David D is thinking, he says, what if you paint the whole house? Well, from an efficiency standpoint, I would say right now the solar panels may be more cost effective, surface area versus energy produced. But yeah, you're right. In the future, why have solar panels if you have photovoltaic paint, and you pick a color that, paint your house, and you now generate energy with the color?
I think that's a fantastic idea, actually. Can you imagine what it would be like if there got to be a short in the system? Though you go and you go lean up against the wall and zap, and
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Well, all challenges that we're going to have to overcome as we continue to move technology in this century. Facebook, Paul A. Jones is joining us. He says, very interested in the subject of lead. My lead level was off the dial and I got quite sick. I didn't want chelation therapy, so I went natural therapy using herbs and zinc, Atlantic dulse spirulina, and oregano, which fixes the lead so your body can expel it. Within 3 months, my lead level was back to normal. My doctor was amazed. Well, thank you for that additional information.
Thank you, Paul.
We should probably get right into the lead portion of the article here then, and this is according to NBC News. The headline is, lead in gasoline tied to over 150 million excess cases of mental health disorders, is what this study suggests. And it reads something like this. Exposure to lead in gasoline during childhood resulted in many millions of excess cases of psychiatric disorders over the last 75 years, is what this new study found. Now, lead was banned from automobile or from gasoline in 1996. And this is an article published in the Journal of Child Psychology and Psychiatry. It was looking at its lasting impact in the U.S. by analyzing childhood blood lead levels from 1940 to 2015. Well, according to the findings, the national population experienced an estimated 151 million excess mental health disorders, all attributable to exposure to lead from car exhaust during the children's early development. The exposure made a generation of Americans more depressive, anxious, inattentive, and hyperactive, according to this study. They found that these lead levels also lowered people's capacity for impulse control and made them more inclined to be neurotic. That's kind of describing this generation, is it not?
Kind of is, actually, yes.
They say that lead, which is associated with mental health and personality differences, was most pronounced for people born between 1966 and 1986, according to the study. And the reason for that was that coincided with the peak use of leaded gasoline in the mid-60s and mid-70s. So you might ask, well, why were they putting lead in gasoline? What's the point in that?
Well, that's an excellent question, because you would think, if 150 million people, for goodness sakes, are being negatively impacted, and they knew about it and had known about it for a long time, what benefit could there possibly be to having lead in gasoline?
Sure. Well, it was added to gasoline to improve engine performance and fuel economy. It basically was a lubricant. And it plays into octane, for example. Lead is also known as tetrathyl lead. It increased the octane rating of gasoline, which allowed engines to compress more and run more efficiently. Engine knock. Well, lead prevented engine knock, which made engines run more smoothly. Knock is when you have a timing problem.
Mm-hmm.
And then valve recession. Lead protected against valve seat recession, which can cause compression and power loss. Again, it's acting as a barrier, as a lubricant in the engine, in the combustion chambers, basically. So at some point, they finally realized, putting lead into gasoline with emissions now is going to affect humans, and they banned it in 1996.
I still remember my parents. I grew up in the rural Northwest, and my father did not like having his 1980 Buick have this catalytic converter thing, because engine knock was a real issue. It was very difficult to get an engine timed absolutely perfectly. And when you put the unleaded gasoline into these engines, they tended to knock.
You get that pinging noise, and you know
Yes.
that's actually, damaging your hardware.
That was exactly it. So, he knew how to. He was mechanically inclined, is how I'll put it, and so he cut out the catalytic converter, put a piece of pipe in there instead, and then used tin snips to cut open the gasoline hold opening, because the lead nozzles, of course, or the nozzles that had leaded gasoline were larger than the nozzles for unleaded gasoline.
Uh-huh.
And then we had a lead gasoline car, and it ran a whole lot better.
And you didn't live in an area where you had emissions control every year, right?
Oh, no, not at all. Not at all.
This is up in Alaska?
No, this was in northern Idaho.
Idaho, okay.
Of all things, where we lived in northern Idaho was probably more rural than where we lived in south central Alaska.
Really? Okay. YouTube, Two Shades of Gray is joining us. He says, EVs are cheap to produce by robots. Will these cars be recycled instead of being repaired in the future? Now, there's an interesting concept, throwaway, and it's a throwaway concept, basically. As, of course, products become less expensive and cheaper to produce, the ability to maintain and repair is then compromised, and at some point in time, it may cross over into just disposing. I mean, how many people these days repair their TV or flat screen, as they're now called? You simply replace.
Yeah.
Your toaster, your shaver, your hair dryer, your vacuum cleaner. I'm not even sure that repair shops for this stuff exist anymore or could survive if they did.
In many cases, they can't because why bother?
Yeah.
If I have a 65-inch TV screen, oh, sure, maybe 5 years ago I paid $1,000 for it. To call the TV repairman to fix my TV might cost me $300.
Right.
And I could go out and spend the same $300 and get the newest, greatest, latest 75-inch TV. So why would I do that? And it's kind of sad, actually.
My first job in Rochester, New York, as a teenager in high school was in the 60s, and it was a small appliance repair shop. And we repaired everything from irons, toasters, record players, 5-tube radios, clocks.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember one day a woman brought in her toaster, and she sets it down on the counter with a kerplunk, and a whole bunch of roaches come streaming out of it. And she says, "That's all right. That's all right." I will never unsee that.
Oh my
that
gosh,
vision.
that's funny.
All right. So, Jaguar, it looks like we were discussing the impact that this new direction for them is taking. All right, Jesse.
You got to pronounce it correctly. It's Jaguar.
Jaguar. Yeah, I did see
That's how
that.
they say it on the commercial.
Yeah. So we'll pronounce it like the Brits. So I don't know. I looked at it and I said, it's such a clear-cut deviation from what they normally do that I'm not sure this is going to fly. But your thought is look at the amount of visibility this is generating.
Well, this kind of goes back to the old P.T. Barnum quote that there is no such thing as bad press.
Uh-huh.
Look, in general, I think I would join the mockers in saying, "What did you do? You made a pink Batmobile." I mean, that's exactly what it looks like. And that says, and their theme was "copy nothing," but I don't know that that's true. At the same time, while Jaguar has been widely mocked, how many people were talking about Jaguar 2 weeks ago?
Yeah,
That's the thing.
No one. Yeah, that's right.
And I think it's kind of a contrary take that I saw in the press, was that Jaguar was on its way to irrelevancy, insolvency, and death. It was on its way to becoming the automotive version of Kodak.
Yeah, good point.
And they're trying to do something different. They're trying to get a new and different market. Right now, their market skews to older luxury vehicle enthusiasts. Those older luxury vehicle enthusiasts are generally not saying anything about the rebrand because they're not engaged with the brand. They don't care.
Yeah.
Well, when you have a customer base that doesn't care, then you got a real problem, at least with the engagement, positive or negative. The polarizing nature of it is going to make a lot of people talk, just like we're talking right now.
Right.
And ultimately, I think that has a better chance to be good for Jaguar than something else.
I think my favorite comment this morning as I was reviewing some of this was somebody on a video that was saying, now what the heck does a bunch of transsexuals on Mars have anything to do with a sports car? Randolph Schnack joining us. He says it actually costs more to repair both for distribution of parts and labor. Yeah, good point. It's no longer cost effective. It's a good thing that my formative years were in the 60s where I was able to get a career in electronics.
I agree with Randolph from a factual basis, but from a cultural basis, the fact that we in the U.S. have gone from a saving and repairing and let's make it work type of culture to a throwaway culture is just deeply disturbing. And I admit I'm part of that culture. I will absolutely look at what is it that we have. I replaced an ice maker recently. We like the little pebble ice like Sonic makes.
Yeah.
And we were going to go and repair our ice maker until we found out that the repair was going to run twice the cost of just throwing it away and buying a new one.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, well, I'm just going to buy a new one then.
Things are changing rapidly, folks. And if you're interested, tomorrow is our AI podcast. Last podcast, we talked about UBI, Universal Basic Income.
Oh, yes.
The impact of that. Who's going to fund it? That was a fun one. Well, it's going to be called a robot tax.
Sure.
The robots are taking over. Well, they're going to have to start funding all the unemployment funds for humans that are out of work. So brace yourself, folks. We're in for some rapid changes that are going to alter the way that we expect things to be done. It looks like we have reached our half-hour mark.
Yep.
Within 30 minutes, we're going to resume with the Tesla Roadster podcast. And today's podcast deals with the alignment issues for Tesla Roadsters. We just got a fancy computerized vehicle alignment system. And what we're finding to be a problem with Tesla Roadsters were a few unexpected things in suspension-related type issues. So we're going to have Mike Manning, our shop manager who has years of suspension experience, also racing experience, join us. And he's going to talk about the successes that we've had with this new alignment table, how it relates to Tesla Roadsters, and what kind of improvements we're going to be able to make to these cars as a result.
I look forward to that conversation with Mike. I hope that you guys join us and have a great week.
Thanks for joining us.